What's going on, guys? I'm going to do a short video about this Master's Replica Lightsaber. This is not necessarily going to be a how-to video, just a process video. The Master Replica Lightsabers, these came out about 10 to 15 years ago. I bought them for pretty cheap at the time. They're pretty cool, retailed on the shelves for about $100. They don't make them anymore, so if you find one in good condition, it's going to be on eBay for somewhere around $200. The problem with these is the way these are built is they have a LED strip of lights in the actual lightsaber, so they give you a very cool power up and power down effect because it's a string of LEDs that light up in order and turn off in order. The problem with them is they're not practical, and after a lot of abuse, those lights could turn off. So here you can see where the lights have been hit a couple times, and the camera's not picking it up, but there's even more. Those are just the ones that are super noticeable. Like I said, it's got a pretty cool power up and power down effect. The LEDs will go on and off in order, so it actually looks like it's powering down like a real lightsaber. Like I said, the problem with that is it's not practical. They don't make replacements. They do make conversion kits. One website called the Custom Saber Shop.com that sell lightsabers, they make conversion kits for these. Essentially what it's doing is getting rid of the string of LEDs and replacing it with one LED in the hilt. Like I said, this isn't necessarily going to be a how-to video. I'm not going to go step-by-step process what you need to do to convert this to the single LED. I'm just going to talk about the process and what you need to do. I'll throw in some key points in here throughout the process, but it's not going to be a step-by-step video. The Custom Saber Shop on their website, if you do conversion kits for Master Replicas, they do have a decent breakdown in one of their forums about how to do it. I'm pretty sure it's the owner that created the thread about how to do this. So essentially what it comes with is a new hilt that will accept the single LED bulb into it and the bulb kit. It's got a LED, some thermal tape, pretty much a light dissipator that'll actually send the beam throughout the saber when you have it, and a couple different components that you're going to need to replace it with. What you're doing is you're getting rid of the string of LEDs, cutting off the old hilt and putting the new one in. To be able to do this, you need at least 3 big things. You're going to need some kind of metal saw or a bandsaw, preferably. I'm just going to do it with a metal handsaw. Hopefully that works out. You're taking out the old one and using the bandsaw for a spacer, because this hilt, actually goes down pretty far to a right about here, so you're going to need a spacer. Either you could create your own spacer, or you could use the bandsaw to cut the empty shell in half. And this is on the inside, this is not on the outside. And then the other thing you're going to need is a drill, because you have to drill out one of these ports to be able to accept one of the bolts that they have into it. And the biggest thing that you're going to need to be able to do is have the ability to solder. If you cannot solder, this will not work. What you're doing is you're cutting off the power supply from the old string of LEDs, and you have to solder this LED circuit into it to replace it. So if you don't have a means to solder, this will not work. And mainly that's why I'm making this video. I try looking up the process and what you need to do to be able to do the conversion. Luckily I have the ability to solder at work. If you don't have that, then this is pretty much a no-go for you. Alright. Getting into the disassembly a little bit. Like I said, this is not going to be a step-by-step how-to, just covering a couple of key points and maybe something that might have been missed on the forum. That's the whole point of most of the videos I make, is stuff that I can't find online, so I decided to make my own video. There's a couple things he misses on the instructions on the forum. Nothing's too complicated, though. One is he doesn't talk about removing this Allen screw right here. All you need to do is just get an Allen wrench and it comes right out, but that's missed on the forum. That's not a big deal. The second one is there's these 4 little tiny, I don't know what they are. They're just decorative little fake bolt head things. He talks about removing them. Trying to remove them. There's one more left in right here, so I can show you guys how to remove it. It's not the whole plate that you pull out. It's actually just the little decorative head screws, whatever you want to call them. They actually just pry out. I have this little tool that's made for prying out screws or nails or whatever it is. You could easily do it with just a flathead screwdriver, but all you got to do is just pop it in there and they pry right off. It's going to be hard to do this with one hand. They just pop right out, just like that. and there's 4 of them. So on the instructions, he points at them, but it's not the whole plate that pries out. It's just those little screw heads. Another thing that they mention in the forums is the actual lightsaber switch itself here. I almost just got it stuck inside of the hilt. There's not, it's hard to see from the video, but there's not a whole lot of space to shove it back in the hilt. But that's what you're supposed to do. You have to slide the hilt off. You have to shove this in the electronics. When you do it, make sure it's got enough clearance, because the whole hilt's going to slide off. You can't just simply push it in there. It's got enough, have enough clearance for the whole hilt to slide down. That's kind of something that he doesn't really mention, and that's the whole point of me doing this video. So when it goes in there, right there, it does not have enough clearance for the hilt to slide out. So you got to make sure you tuck it all the way in there and slide it through, and hopefully this hilt will come out pretty easy. Like I said, that's why I make these videos, just in case anybody else is trying to look for the same thing, they can find it. Alright, so the whole hilt slid out pretty easy. Now you just have essentially your shell of a lightsaber that goes all the way through. Nothing crazy. And all the electronics are inside of it. Like I said, not a step-by-step. I'll chime back in once I'm probably getting ready to cut the electronics. But next step is to punch out, use a punch to get some of these pins out that are holding everything in place. Alright, so more or less, once this thing is totally disassembled, that's what it looks like. Obviously, you pull out the battery power supply. You remove the screws that hold it in place, and the hilt will slide out. Then here's all the electronics. The electronic compartment that has everything in it is just separated, comes off on its own. It's held by tape. And you got to remove the punches to get, I guess, the hilt out of the lightsaber. So once the lightsaber comes out, you got to remove a couple more punches, and this is what the lightsaber looks like disassembled. There's a foam insert to kind of dissipate the light, which I think I will end up keeping in on mine. We'll see what that looks like. And here is the LED lightsaber string. Pretty cool, not practical. And when they go out, these aren't like easily replaceable things. Nobody really makes these. So that's what the conversion kit's for. It turns into a single strong LED that shoots the light up the lightsaber. So next step is to disassemble this, cut it off, and solder the LED onto this. So this is powered by the LED rather than a string of LEDs. Here's the soldering that needs to be done. This is just an image grab from the form tutorial. The LED is thermal taped onto the little brown piece that you see there, which just screws into the base of the hilt. You only have to solder a few pieces, which is on the positive and negative ports. And you have to solder the wires together right where the heat shrink is at. Here's another screen grab from the form. This is for the hilt that needs to be cut. It's made out of plastic, so it won't be too hard to cut at all. The one on the left is the spacer, the one in the middle is the new hilt, and the one on the right is the plastic one that's longer that you're cutting for the spacer. It was pretty simple. I was able to do it with a handsaw. Something that was a little bit finer will cut through it perfectly. Before you thread the LED into the hilt, you need to put the lens holder and the lens inside of there first, something the forms do not cover. Alright, so next is the thumb screw. With the empty blade, the conversion kit comes with this thumb screw that's going to ultimately end up being what holds the blade in place. It gets in there, but not quite. So you just need to drill out this retention hole with an 11/64. This retention hole is, like I said, going to keep the blade in place, and this drill almost fits into it. You're just boring it out a little bit more. Alright, so here is the lightsaber completely reconstructed and put back together. A couple things once you put it back together that it doesn't really note is where these pins go. On the forum tutorial, he spray paints them black. And I kind of just realized that after I put it back together, that on his, he spray painted it black before he put it together, and I didn't. So it's not really that big of a deal if you're trying to get it as accurate as possible, movie accurate as possible. Yeah, you should probably spray paint the bottom of it black real quick just to get those circles black. The other thing I noticed is when you put the blade in the hilt, those pins that go in there, they actually prevent the blade from going all the way down. So hopefully you can see it from this video. But the pins on the outsides are those gold pins that prevent them from going in. That's why I only have the bottom ones on and not the top. Otherwise, the blade will go down to this retention screw, which is the whole point. You could loosen this up, push the blade in, and then you could see the single retention screw on the top that kind of pins the blade in place. It doesn't attach to it, but it really keeps it pinned in there. If you have the pins on top, you kind of see here that they're above the retention screws. So I just remove those. It's not that big of a deal to me to be super movie accurate. I just want a functioning blade where it won't come flying out if I'm swinging it around. Other than that, it came together pretty well. The electronics went together just as the form said. There was no surprises there. Everything went really smooth. It's really bright, and it works really well. You can get the movement and noises just from doing that. And once you give it a little tap, you still get your hit noises. Like you stated on the forum, you could use your old blade, and that's what I did. I'm just trying to make a functional blade. I'm not trying to make one perfectly correct. But he says you need to thicken up the blade at the bottom a little bit. So I did literally like 3 layers of just clear packing tape, and that helps it stick in perfectly. Too much and you'll notice you just remove what you don't need, but it's relatively easy to do. So all you got to do is just 3 layers of it. It'll slide in pretty tight. That's what she said. And then you tighten up the retention screw. And that blade isn't really coming out. And it lights up really bright, a lot brighter than it was before, which could be a good or a bad thing. Just depends on what you want. But lights up really well, very bright. You still get your hit noises and your swing noises. Everything works really well. I don't have the broken LEDs anymore, and easy to replace the blade if it gets broken. And got the conversion complete, nice and easy. CustomSaberShop.com.